Welcome to the Responsible Marketing Podcast, conversations about marketing, sustainability and how we can all help in becoming more responsible organisations. I'm Jo, a marketing strategist and consultant, also flying the flag for a more sustainable and kind future for all. Today I'm joined by Rita Callender, business advisor with the Northeast BIC based in Sunderland. Rita has had a fascinating career, starting off moving from the Northeast to London back in the 1980s to work in buying and finance, before moving back up north and cementing her environmental and sustainability foundations with the brilliant David Bellamy. Anyone under 45, you may have to look him up. Rita and I talk about why data plays such a vital part in good business practice and tips to make data collection easy, the pressure of greenwashing for smaller businesses, why marketing is so important even when times are tough. I had no influence on that part, by the way. How small steps along with a bit of AI can really kickstart your business and home life into a more sustainably led pathway. Plus, it's onwards and upwards for the Northeast BIC. But I've already said far too much, so without any more delay, let's dive straight in. Hi everyone and welcome to the podcast. I'm absolutely delighted to have Rita Callender this afternoon with me. Hi Rita.
Hi Jo, lovely to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. We've got a lot to get through, so I'm not going to hang around too much with the niceties because I want to get in depth with kind of like your background and then what you're doing at the moment, and also talk about your sustainability kind of like flag flying, because we definitely have a bit of a affinity with that, don't we?
That's kind of like definitely, yes.
We're standing side by side on that.
I've got too much to say, an hour might not be long enough.
I know, it's true. Well, it might have to go into two. It's fine. We could do that. So, can you give us a little bit of background to kind of where you are now, where you started from, all that journey that you've had so far?
Definitely. Right, it feels like it's been a long journey. You could say I'm a mature woman now, of a certain age. When I first started out, I went to London, and because I felt like that was the best stomping ground to learn my business craft, where I could learn everything. I ended up doing quite a few different jobs. Believe it or not, I was actually importing for Marks and Spencer's, and I was a buyer. That was one of the places I started, but it was great because that gave me a real insight into what that involved and all the relationships that were required in that supply chain, if you like.
Yeah.
I then realised that there was probably a bit of a gap in my knowledge and that I needed more on the finance side. So I went to work in the city, and I worked for Schroders, who is an international unit trust company, working with stockbrokers, and honed my craft in finance, if you like. This was very much in the 80s, and I was one of only, I was basically a woman in a man's world. There was just me in the early 1980s. So, but that was great because I learned an awful lot about many things, but at that point, nothing about sustainability, surprisingly enough. I then, being a northern girl at heart, my heart is very much in the northeast of England. After 5 years, decided to come home. And I ended up working in Durham University, and I was working for the first consultancy of its type, an environmental consultancy for David Bellamy. And that's where I actually got my first kind of love, if you like, and passion for all things environmental and sustainability. But then it was very much in its infancy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you like, I've got a background a lot in business, but then I actually set up my own consultancy, and training organisation. That was in the 90s. So that ran for over 20 years. That I did that for. Working on European projects, working with about 10 European partners.
And quite high-profile ones as well. I've seen your credentials. It's impressive.
These were big programs that I designed, I developed, I bid for. I wrote everything, basically. It all came from me. And one in particularly that I loved was Green Hero, which was to actually instill sustainability and environment across Europe with all these little ones who are in their primary stages from about 7 to 11. And it was astonishing because it took you to everywhere. I ended up in Romania, I ended up in Italy, all over the place. And it was just fantastic to actually try and get some standard understanding across the whole of Europe with the youth of Europe, if you like. And it gave me a real sense of responsibility. I felt like a bit of a trailblazer at the time doing that. But it was exciting. And so I'm hoping that legacy still lives on in these countries, and that youth now, of course, they will all be leaving school now.
Yes, absolutely.
And hopefully they'll take that learning with them.
And have you got any way of finding out if that's going to happen? Is there any trail that you can...
I suppose because now when we're not part of the European Union, as we all know, I suppose there will be some, you know, I could get back in touch maybe with them to see what's going on, but I haven't up to now, but it would be nice, it would be nice. So when that phase ended, I actually then thought, well, what am I going to do with what I suppose is classified as an encore career? This is what I've subsequently found out, that once you get into your 60s, do you have another career to be had? And I suddenly thought, well, I've got, you know, 35, 40 years experience in business and starting and running your own businesses. And then, as luck would have it, this role came up at the Northeast Business Innovation Centre, the Northeast BIC as it's lovingly known. And I was appointed as business advisor, and that particularly is for pre-start at the moment, so helping to launch businesses and getting to them, you know, getting them up and running and supporting them through that whole process.
So ready for market, or actually go to market?
Yes, go to market.
Right,
yes, and no, they will launch with my support, and I will be ever thankful to the BIC for giving me this opportunity. It's been amazing, and I feel like I've got so much to give.
Yeah, I mean, I know the conversations we've had, the plethora of businesses that you deal with, they're just so, you know, I mean, you've got to have quite an agile mind to keep up with that, I think, which clearly you have. But also, like you say, your background, and there's so many facets to your background that you can actually then lend support in so many ways to those businesses, you know. It's not just about, business process, or it's, I don't know, financial advice or something. It's all of that, you know, it is as if somebody's coming with a bit of an egg to you and say, right, how do I paint all of these surfaces, like all surrounds, rather than just like one face of it or something. It's amazing.
Well, that's it, because we have no idea who's going to come through the door and what sort of support that they're going to need from us. They can be just a sole trader who's wanting to start maybe making jewellery, for instance, or it can be somebody who's going to be employing 20, 30, 40 people and needs over £1 million worth of investment. We really don't know. But for me, that makes it all the more exciting, because I have no idea what's going to come through the door. I don't. But it does give me an opportunity to use all the different skills and knowledge that I've acquired over the years and bring that, to my clients. And we build up great relationships.
I can imagine, absolutely. And do you find that, you know, in the last maybe year, 2 years, it's been as important as demanded, that kind of service, as it was maybe 5 years ago, or even pre, you know, the banishment time, which we won't mention. You know, is it still as wanted? You know, is there still appetite for that? Is it more or less?
Probably even more now, I think. Yes. There seem to be more people who are very keen to start out new businesses, and they've had this love and their passion. And I think because they've found out that there is a support service there, this might be the time to do it. I think when I started out in my career, you thought that maybe you might have 1 or 2 jobs in that lifetime. People now, I think, have at least 9 jobs or roles. And things have really changed, and lots of people have side hustles, as they're called. They do different things, and they diversify. And I think this is very much different to what it was 30, 40 years ago, to what people are doing now. And they're wanting to explore new things. And
I love the fact you've got Business Optimist on your LinkedIn profile. It just sounds like, yes, absolutely. And you said that nothing in business will ever surprise you or faze you. Is that still true?
It is, yes. I think the Business Optimist idea came out of when I was doing some self-employed consultancy. I was helping businesses, and they used to say to me, how do you keep smiling all the time, Rita? Because I've always been known as a smiler. That's part of my DNA, I think. I've been a glass half full, hence the optimism type of thing. I see optimism really as probably a strategy, because it's all about inbuilt resilience and what you're finding in yourself to go forward. Because the trouble is, in business, as we've just said there, you don't know what's going to happen in business. I lived through 3 very deep recessions. We all remember what they look like. particularly in the Northeast when we lost Northern Rock. You don't know what's coming the next day. Is the phone going to keep ringing? Are you going to get business? So you really do have to have belief, self-belief, resilience, and build all of that, and try and keep that cheery disposition, because otherwise it will grind you down. I think a lot of the work that I do with my clients, although I obviously give them very hands-on practical advice about setting up a business, a lot of them come to me and say it's all about the confidence I'm giving them, and that inbuilt resilience, and what that will mean for them going forward all those years ahead. Because if you think about it, I won't be with them then maybe 3-5 years down the line.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm preparing them for that world of self-employment.
Yeah, and business can be lonely when you work for yourself. Even if you've got people around you, even if you've got a business partner, sometimes it's just lonely, isn't it?
It can be
great
really
to have
lonely.
a sounding board and a third party that's not involved in the business. They can really genuinely, without any bias, comment or give advice, or even just sit and listen.
Well, that's it. No, I mean, I think you're right, Joe. I mean, they always say it's lonely at the top, because you really, a lot of people, of course, might have a partner or a husband, wife, or whatever it is, family member who might be able to support them, but you really do need someone who's just going to be that sounding board and listen to you when you're having a really bad time. Or you could be doubting yourself, because people do doubt themselves. Women have a lot of the imposter syndrome. We were only just speaking about that today here at the BIC, about a lot of women who just don't feel that they've got the right kind of skills and knowledge to be in this world of business.
Wow. Okay.
And that's still happening now, even though you would think it would have actually improved. It has improved, but there's still some of that now. So I am very much about building that confidence with my clients. Definitely. So I do need to keep smiling for them.
Well, absolutely. And you are super smiling. I don't think I've ever seen you without a smile on your face, which is lovely. It is what it is. So you mentioned obviously about kind of like 30-40 years ago, business was very different to what it is now. But also the sustainability platform is very different as well. So you mentioned about working with David Bellamy, which is, I can still remember watching him on telly. That shows my age. But he was phenomenal. Him and David Attenborough, which is for me just like complete eye openers. And it was just fascinating how they talked so passionately about things, and really it was an education without you realising you're being educated. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So can you tell me kind of like how has it changed since you started on that project work with the David Bellamy kind of like project? Was it foundation?
Yes, it was actually a consultancy called David Bellamy Associates.
Consultancy. So what's happened with the landscape for sustainability since then? And how do you think it's progressing? I was always amazed that the conversations of these started like in the 70s. And yet we don't seem to have come, in my opinion, very far. But am I being a bit naive about that?
No, I don't think you are actually, Joe, because I often think about it, because I think about the years, as you say, I've been involved in that journey. And I do feel a bit disillusioned some days, even with my optimist head on, that we haven't actually got further than, what I thought that we would have done by this stage now. I mean, working with David, it was amazing, because it was a real platform to work with larger corporates who would have a massive influence, because some of them at the time were really very much household names. We were very fortunate to build that at the time.
Can you give some examples?
Yes, it was actually Warburton's, the post office, Green the post office. We were doing work with Nissan as well. We've done all sorts of very, very large major clients at the time. And we were very much at the forefront of environmental consultancies. We were the trailblazers. There were very few of us around at that point. Because if you think about it, it's only really been in the last 30 years that environment is actually being discussed and being more mainstream. So I think that I was hoping that by now there'd be more of a trickle-down effect, and those large corporates, the supply chains, all of that, the smaller providers would be brought more into that realm, if you like. And although it is happening, obviously people do take environmental and social and governance, ESG as we call it, as being quite a core thing. A lot of people see it very much still as on the outside, as an extra add-on thing, when we really need it to be something that's embedded right from day one with the business.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I do with my businesses now. I talk to them early about that and try to get them on board with the idea, because we know it's got a huge amount of advantages. And
Absolutely.
you know, well that's right.
Well,
that's it. You and I are very much advocates for that.
Totally.
But I think it's all about, for me, it's about running a business well.
Yes.
You know, this is it. It's all about, you know, you do it for the right reasons. And I always think about the next generation, the ones that are coming behind us. What are we leaving for them and the legacy on this planet?
Absolutely.
And that's why I feel so passionate about it. And I'm just hoping that, you know, things will improve. I mean, of course, at the moment, there's a lot of, you know, financial pressures on businesses. We know that we've got a war in the Middle East.
Yeah.
We've got problems with, causing havoc. We've got energy prices that are soaring. This is causing all manner of problems for business. So you've got to get the balance right, really, and make sure that you can handle all of that. But it's really important to keep pushing forward and collecting that data and hanging on to that environmental data. You don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
If you're not monitoring it, you can't measure it. That's
Absolutely.
what I always say to my clients.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't know where you are, you don't know where you might want to go, you don't know what your progress is or anything, do you?
No, exactly, because you need a starting point. And you need to know how. I mean, I remember going into some companies and sort of saying, well, you know, how much do you spend on energy a year and things like that, and then they would say, oh, well, I don't really know, I don't know how much we spend on energy. Now that was a complete eye-opener to me.
Yeah.
Because I thought, well, you're not even looking at how you can even save money. And if you think about it, you don't need to actually bring on more clients. You might be able to save money and improve your bottom line just by being more efficient.
Absolutely. And I think that's the angle, isn't it? It's not necessarily about compliance. I mean, clearly it is about compliance to a point now, but it doesn't have to be. And I think you're right. It's about, you know, where can businesses actually make themselves more efficient? And that's normally where I start as well.
Yes.
You know, where can you be more efficient? Where can you cost save within your business without letting go of people, let's say? Because that's a job two decision, isn't it? Well, we'll just cut some heads.
Yes.
But it doesn't have to be like that. It might be, again, going back to your supply chain, it might be your energy usage, it might be your machinery's really old and it's just expelling, I don't know, releasing energy that you're not even using, you don't realise,
right.
you know.
Yes.
So, and those companies that you worked with the consultancy originally, then, so you worked obviously with some big household names. Do you think they've carried that on? Because, you know, again, as a small business, and this might be my naivety, but I get a little bit frustrated that, you know, a lot of these bigger companies clearly have to be involved with this now anyway, whether it was a choice back in that day, back in the, like 30 years ago or not, I'm not sure. But they don't really advocate to support other businesses doing that as well, or they don't really talk about it a lot. You know, and again, for me, good business is telling people about the good business stuff that you do.
Yes, I think a lot. I think you're right, but I think a lot of it becomes a worry for them because they sort of think about the greenwashing side of things.
Yeah.
They're almost frightened to put their heads above the parapet and you know, say what they're doing well because they think they're going to be shot down because of it.
Yeah.
So there is a fear factor there, and I think very much for the smaller businesses who just don't feel that they haven't got an environmental department or an environmental manager.
Yeah.
The owner manager is the environmental manager. And we all know you're wearing all of these hats, aren't you? And you're firefighting and you're trying to deal with all of that. And they sort of think, oh, if I put out some story into the world, you know, about the little things that I'm trying to do, you know, am I going to be shut down for doing that?
Yeah,
you know?
and I guess that comes back to, like you said, data, measuring it, proof, evidence, all that kind of stuff. But also, you know, for me, greenwashing is as bad as greenwashing. Like if you're, you know, you should be really proud that you're a good business with good business practices, in my opinion.
Oh, yes.
You know, so yeah, I guess it's finding ways then for them not to be so fearful about talking about it, isn't it?
Yes, and I think and that's maybe where my role and my other colleagues who are all business advisors in different areas across the Northeast, I mean, you know, we're working in Sunderland, Washington, Gateshead, Durham.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of influence. I feel actually a huge sense of responsibility. I know that's what your pod's, you know, is labelled as.
Absolutely,
responsible marketing. Well,
it is.
I feel a responsible business advisor because I have to sort of, you know, tell them what's expected of them. And just feel that I have to say something about environment and sustainability. It's my job to do that. we've done a lot of work at the BIC to make sure that that's embedded in the whole diagnostic process that we start with the client on, to make sure that they understand the implications of what that's all about, and that seems to have actually improved things as we've gone on. It is, because I think we're seeing more of that coming through now on the paperwork and things that we're doing. So that's exciting for me to see that. And if I can influence that in any way, that's exciting for me. And I have obviously taken a bit of a steer on that, and kind of try to push that side of things.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's obviously, I guess it's people realising that that's an attribute for the company, or it's another good way, because again, it goes back to maybe finance. If you want some investments, a lot of companies now are looking for green credentials, for want of a better phrase, things like that. So I guess it's educating them, isn't it? And there's clearly an appetite for that, which is great. There are clearly open ears for this kind of information that business owners or business startups will listen to and then put in place. So I mean, that's great.
I mean, you might just be you might be making cakes or something like that, but this might be for a large organisation. You don't know who you're going to be working for, and then they say, well, can I see your environmental policy? What is it you do about using energy? What do you So there could be all manner of things that they're asking, and if you haven't got those things already, in your arsenal, if you like, in your toolkit, then I think that really you're missing a trick, because you need to have it. I always say to them, build a little file on your computer. Just have a file on your desktop, and anything that you think is a good news story about environment or anything else, just put it in that file so it's there, ready and waiting, so you've got, as you said, the data. No, we definitely need it.
So what do you think the biggest hurdles are for whether it's startups or whether it's businesses already practicing or servicing their client base? What do you think the biggest hurdles are for them to be a bit more open and maybe a bit more, either embracing kind of sustainability or ESG or good business practice from a sustainable point of view, or talking about it? What do you think their biggest hurdles are? Also, you mentioned the greenwashing thing.
Yes, I think the greenwashing, it is a fear thing. I mean, I think a lot of them probably need a little bit more training on it, actually. I think if there was more training, it would help, because I think then it's like anything, isn't it? If you don't feel that you've got the experience or the knowledge, you're feeling a bit nervous, aren't you? I mean, for instance, I remember when I first started out, as I mentioned about finance, that wasn't something I was particularly strong in. So I've had to build that over time. And it's the same with anything with environment. I think they need to learn about all of these things. They need to read about it, and they need to feel quite comfortable talking about it on PR releases and putting it out in magazines or on social media or whatever it is, and not be fearful of it. And I mean, obviously taking advice from people. I mean, you obviously offer advice. I used to offer advice, and in my consultancy years, but of course I offered in my business advising years now. So I think it's just to stop that fear factor, really, and to just. I think you've got to start talking about it early. If you talk about it early, then it just becomes mainstream. It just becomes ingrained in the business, doesn't it? Yes, it
like you said, apart from it, well, as opposed to being a bolt-on, you've then got to try and absorb, haven't you? Which feels like it's going to be time, resource, money, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be.
And they feel unprepared and a bit out of their depth, I think.
Yeah, completely. And there's a lot to keep tabs on, so things are changing all the time, and I guess there's also, unless you're caught up in that supply chain where you have legislation that's coming through that you're aware of and you're being communicated with, but also there's other policies and various government criteria or whatever that people might not be aware of, and it's maybe finding somebody like yourself, for example, that has their finger on the pulse more so, if not, to a greater extent. That they can actually rely on for that information, so they know they're getting good advice as well, I think.
Well, that's it. I mean, even that, something like the duty of care, regulations, and a lot of people aren't aware of the sort of the waste carrier situations. I've spoken to people who have maybe got just somebody who's got a van to transport waste, but they've done this unknowingly, not realising that they had to check out. This is before we've started working with them, and I would sort of say to them, well, have you looked for a waste carrier's registration and a licence, and are they registered? Do you know where that waste is going? You are responsible for that waste. And the Environment Agency, if they feel that, you know, it's got your name on it, if it ends up in a field or we've
side of a road or anything.
The side of the road. I mean, we've all seen this, haven't we, on the TV recently, you know, where loads of rubbish is being dumped in huge, you know, areas of rural areas, and it might have some, you know, postal address on there, you know, that might be linked to your traced back.
Yeah.
So I think that people do need to be aware of that, and that's why I do obviously go down the compliance side as well, as the more softer side of things too, because we've got to make sure that they're not breaking the law.
Absolutely, yes, and then go back to responsibility. I guess that's your responsibility to make sure you're giving them as much information as possible to make them compliant, but you know, also aware of legislation and whatever else might happen. But also their responsibility to then, like you say, make sure they know what happens to the waste.
Yes.
And it is difficult sometimes, especially if you are, maybe if you're a company, a medium-sized business or even a small business really, with 3 or 4 suppliers, you can keep kind of like tabs on what they're doing, where they resource their own stuff from. But if you've got maybe 200 suppliers, it's difficult, isn't it?
It is.
But it's, you know, it still needs to be asked, that question, you know, where do you resource, I don't know, your elastic or whatever it is, you know, whatever it might be. I don't know why elastic came into my head, but anyway. But you know, it's important to ask those questions, isn't it, or at least start the conversations.
Yes, and you know, you have a corporate social responsibility, you know, the CSR as we used to, you know, you need to know where all of your, you know, the things that you're purchasing, you know, procuring, you know, do they come from a good source, you know, and has it been manufactured in the correct way?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it hasn't been polluted a local river, for instance, or killed fish or whatever it might be. You know, you don't want to be working with these companies. They're not the people you should be working with.
Yeah.
So you've got, it's all about due diligence, isn't it? And making sure that you just because it's the cheapest isn't necessarily the best, because it might come back to bite you later.
Absolutely right.
So you've got to be, you know, you've got to weigh that up as well, definitely.
Yeah. And also I think, again, going, you know, the fear factor, being brave, it's asking those questions, isn't it, of your supply chain, saying, I want to actually see a factory, or I want to see, I don't know, where your factory is sited, or whatever it is, you know. And it's not so factories, it could be, I don't know, just a supplier. If you're a third party selling on behalf of someone else, well, I want to see your credentials. I want to know that what I'm selling is authentic to me, and I can sell it, you know, without worry or concern or fear.
Yes. I mean, if you're the director of the company,
you are liable, aren't you?
You are liable.
Yeah.
You know, your name is above the door. That's what I always say to them. You know, and if you not feel comfortable with something and you've done your due diligence, don't proceed. It's always best to err on the side of caution at that point. If there's something that's, you know, you're fearful of, you know, think, no, my name is above the door. Because if it's the same with health and safety, it's exactly the same. You're the one that they come for if there's a problem. Absolutely. So it's really important that you do the right thing.
And is that kind of advice that the BIC also offer, so you guys offer as business advisors? You know, can a business, clearly obviously based in the Northeast, I would guess, come to you and say, you know, I'm a bit worried about this, or I don't know, you know, it's about health and safety, for example. Can you then signpost them to somewhere else, another body perhaps that gives them that support, or would you take them on yourselves?
Well, no, we can certainly give them that advice and that help, because obviously we have access to all of the, you know, health and safety regimes or legal side of things, but there are lots of organisations across the Northeast that we're linked to because of our status in the Northeast, and we can find out all sorts on market research, on you know, all manner of things, as I said, about compliance really. What you might need if you're setting something up and in food hygiene, for instance, with the local you know, authority, because you would have to have a license, you know, you need all of those things in place. So definitely they can come to us for that advice, and if there's anything that we haven't got access to, we will help them find it. So they, you know, they can come to us with any of those questions. Definitely.
Fantastic. Just back on the sustainability side, so obviously you've been passionate about this for a long time. Right.
Too many years.
Well, no, never too many years, not in my opinion. Can never be too passionate about this for too many years. Do you still, I guess, okay, so here's a bit of a throw-in question that I haven't prepped you for. So I am quite nice to my guests. I do prep people generally. Can you give us an example of someone that you think is doing really good business practice in that kind of field, so sustainability, ESG, and you don't have to name names for the other one, by the way, and someone that perhaps, or a type of business that perhaps isn't lending themselves as well as they could do to the responsibility side. Can you give us 2 examples?
All right, I'm just thinking about, certainly ones that I'm working with at the moment. There would be ones who are trying to source maybe materials that come from a good source, 100% cotton perhaps. That's
a really difficult one.
That's a really difficult side of things, and I think that I've got people looking at running garages, and it's what they do with the waste, and so yes, because that's quite difficult as well. Trying to advise them on that, because they've got also oils, they've got tires, they've got you think about a car and what that might be. So I think it's good, and as I said before, you do feel this sense of responsibility to make sure that they are doing the right thing. I can think of people locally, probably larger corporate organisations who are doing good things. They are checking their supply chains, they are asking to see policies and procedures, but then I think there's a lot more that could be doing a lot more, if you see what I mean, because I don't think that I worry, I suppose, that because of the financial problems at the moment and the energy supply things, that environmental and social and stuff is maybe going to go down the pecking order a little bit. It's interesting about marketing. I spoke to somebody recently, and they were thinking about actually letting their marketing department go.
That's always the case.
Yes, exactly. We both have knowledge of this in the past, and I always say to clients, really, marketing is key to everything that you do. It's your next contract, it's your next job, and it's so important that you don't, you keep that going. I always say, in your busiest periods, that's when you need to be marketing the most, because you don't know what's coming next.
Absolutely. It's keep your pipeline always.
You know all about this with your background, Joe, and of course I never ever say just don't take your foot off the pedal. And I said, this comes from years of experience. I've been through it myself. And you think, everything's fine, everything's hunky-dory because we've got all this work in. And of course, you're busy firefighting and delivering that contract, but you're not feeding the pipeline that's going to be your next contract. So you always need to be mindful of that. So I do worry, though, with the environmental and sustainability stuff that it might go down the pecking order a little bit, because businesses are firefighting a little bit, and they are under pressure.
Tough, isn't it?
It's a tough business world out there at the moment. It's not easy for anybody. Lots of different sectors like hospitality, they're struggling hugely. So there's lots of things to think about. So I do hope that people will continue to do it and see it's an important thing. But do it because it adds value to their business. It's all about adding value.
Exactly right.
How are you going to stand apart and have that competitive edge? And you've got to measure it. You've got to have it in your, as I said, your toolkit. Something that's going to be different from the other business down the road. And what is it? And you see, maybe it's just the way I am, but I always like to sort of buy from sustainably conscious businesses, ones that I think who are trying to do the right thing for the planet. We only have one planet.
I know.
And that's that
doesn't matter what other people think with spaceships and everything else, is it? At the minute, this is it.
Well, this is it. We only
can't wait until Mars is ready for us.
The way
we certainly can't.
Well, exactly. I don't think I'll be going to space anytime soon. So I think we do it for the right reasons and for what we're leaving behind.
I think on my journey on this, I was a bit worried to talk about kind of like the financial aspects. I didn't want to be saying to people, you can make loads of money out of this, because it almost sounds counterintuitive for me to say, but you can make loads of money. As you know, this issue I have with my own industry as in marketing, we're basically constantly telling people to rebuy, throw away, buy, throw away, just spend your money, spend your money, spend your money. But there are commercial advantages to doing this kind of stuff. So how do we then educate and influence businesses, especially, again, I guess, you're in a brilliant position to do that because you're starting with pre-starts or startups in their really embryonic stage. They can start thinking about this, but how do we educate them to make sure they understand there are commercial advantages to this, and actually their business might be more robust financially if they were to embrace some of these practices?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, you see at the moment that there's a lot of information out there. When I think about when I started in the 1980s, there was hardly anything.
Yeah,
there was hardly anything.
Yeah.
So I think now with AI, we have to mention AI. It's the elephant in the room, isn't it? We have to mention it in the room. I mean, you can be asking AI all of these environmental questions and seeing what they come back with. You can
hopefully accurately.
Hopefully accurate. We know there's obviously a bit of due diligence to do on that, but it will give you a steer. It definitely will give you, but we're putting you in the right direction. But you can, of course, there's so much information out there. There's so many agencies, so many places that you can find help. I mean, we've recently all done the carbon literacy qualification. As advisors, we felt at the BIC it was really important that we stood up for what we wanted to be counted, I suppose. What we thought was the right thing to be done. So that was something that we've done. And just looking for all sorts of, as I say, toolkits online. There's different agencies that have built those. There's all sorts of free resources out there. All kinds of stuff that businesses can use.
Yeah, and starting from really basic, literally like your water usage, your energy usage. That's
exactly.
it. That's or number of staff that you employ and how they travel to work. That's as basic as it can be, isn't it? But that's your benchmark, and if you do get to a point, I guess, where you need an auditor in, well, that's something different then, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's different. But I think you can start from a very basic level and actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think this is what I always say to people.
Sounds dangerous, doesn't it?
Well, it does. I know. And I've recently decided I like bird watching. And I mean, obviously, I love conservation because of just the way it is.
Really?
But I hadn't really been into it. And is this what happens when you get to our age?
I think it's when you have time, maybe, to spend, more time in the garden.
I know. But you see, because of that, we've been, in my local where I live, we've planted 5,000 bulbs. So we're trying to bring, make it a better place for bees. If you've got a little bit of a garden, I mean, we've got some lovely outdoor spaces here at the BIC.
Yeah, you have.
Trying to put some maybe more environmentally friendly things into those areas, for the biodiversity side of things,
And I have to say that I drive my husband mad because there are patches in our garden where there's some beautiful clover that grows.
Oh.
And I've managed to train him now where that grows, it's obviously starting to grow, it's not flowering yet, it's starting to grow, he's not to cut it.
All right, there we go.
So there are patches, like crowns of clover in our garden where he looks out the window and he says, "Oh, it just looks so nice, but the bees will love it."
Well, that's
and they do. They're busy on there.
Well, in our local area, yes, we haven't been cutting a lot of the verges, and we're letting wildflowers propagate there, and we're not trying to cut it back. And yes, we're trying to keep things tidy, but there is an opportunity to, leave some of it for wildflowers as well.
Definitely.
So there's all sorts. Even I always say, just try and do some small things. With
small
your business,
steps.
just baby steps, whatever that might be. Where are you getting your paper from? About what energy are you using? As you said, the water usage. Don't go into the kitchen areas and find the taps being running for 30 minutes or whatever it is. Train your staff. To turn off lights. It's all these simple things.
And that then filters back to their home life as well, doesn't it? So out of the office or out of off-site or whatever, hopefully that filters down.
Yes.
And they're a bit more conscious. So then you're almost influencing other people. So it's a bit of a tsunami, isn't it? It's like start small and then hopefully there's big waves that actually make a difference.
Well, we've obviously fitted solar panels here at the BIC, and we're looking obviously for that, the right sort of energy now. I think there's just so many things you could do, and as I say, if we're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Really.
I do think, and I'm a massive advocate for the Northeast BIC. I do love what you do here. I love being here. The people were amazing. You've had some changes going on. Like, what's next for the BIC? Because you've been here. How many years has it been established?
This is over 30 years. Yes, and actually, what is really strange is I started my own consultancy businesses at about the time that the BIC set up. So that was over 30 years ago.
Yes, of course.
So it was starting when I was starting in the Northeast with my businesses. So I have a real affinity with it.
Yeah.
And on that, being on that journey with them, if you like.
Yeah.
And I mean, next we have a lot of managed workspace. We've just taken another 3 places on board now that we're going to manage facilities.
Right.
Which has just gone out to the press actually just in the last few days, so we can have a lot of influence on that because we're managing the space. We've got co-working spaces here at the BIC, which I know you've seen. It's strange because everybody I bring into the BIC just absolutely loves it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It was what you were saying there about you just feel good somehow when you're here, and I think
very positive place. I think.
Yeah, I think that positive energy and that vibe, and I think because you're a business, you can learn from other businesses, and what we try and do through our tenant networking is to get them to collaborate and work with each other and support each other. As we said before, it can be a very lonely place when you're setting out, and I would encourage people to always do that and go and have a coffee with somebody. Don't just sit in your office, come out and speak to somebody. And then of course we have a tenant advisor here who's dedicated to supporting just the tenants. And then we, as I say, we cover all the other areas with our business startup advice as well. So hopefully we're just building and getting better at doing that, really.
And there's some new funding release.
Yes, new funding.
That's great.
Yes, that's right. We've got the Rural Growth Fund, which is a 3-year programme. And I'm going to be running that part of it for Gateshead. So anybody who's in rural Gateshead, if they would like to look me up and find me on LinkedIn, or we've got the northeast-bic.co.uk, where you can find out, on the website. There's so much information, that we can help with businesses. And as I said before, if we don't know the answer, we will find it for you. And so, never be fearful of picking up that phone and asking us, no matter where you are in the Northeast. And because we're all about enterprise and supporting enterprise for the next generation. And hopefully with our environmental and sustainability, our ESG credentials,
absolutely.
It will be embedded from day one,
which
would be lovely.
It's a good start.
Really
Rita, it's been so lovely having you on the podcast.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you so much. My last question to you, do you have a book recommendation, either fact or fiction, whichever you prefer?
I've got something prepared for
that.
Good. The trouble is you read so many books, don't you, over the years, and then you've sort of got to think, well, will it be fact, will it be fiction? And I kind of thought with the business side of it, and maybe be better, or maybe about my ethos on life in general, which is obviously the optimistic side of things. So it's The Go-Giver by Bob Berg and John David Mann, and this is all about providing value and serving others and building relationships and collaborations. And so this is all about giving rather than receiving. And that's always been my ethos, because I've been in the business world, as I say, for nearly 40 years. I am still working and linked with people that I knew over 30 years ago.
That's incredible.
So what you're talking about is building your tribe and your support network, and always trying to give, because something will always come back. It will always come back, and somebody will remember that day that you helped them, and they will help you when you need it. So I think people would find this quite an interesting read.
It's very inspirational.
Yes, it's only a short book, and it kind of gives, it represents 5 laws basically: value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity, I should say. I can't even say the word.
That's not easy.
Basically saying success is based on giving more value than you receive in payment. Focus on creating value rather than chasing money or sales. I think if you chase the money, it's all about purpose.
And value.
It's all about purpose and value and adding value. And I would always say, just be kind.
Absolutely. Gosh, I think we can take that anywhere in the world, can't we?
We can.
For sure. Rita, it's been so lovely. Thank you so much for your time
thank
today.
you, Jo. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Mad.
All right.
And to our listeners and watchers, thank you very much for listening and watching, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening or watching the Responsible Marketing Podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please hit the subscribe button wherever you get your podcast from. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe there too. I also love to get reviews as they make a huge difference to others discovering the show. So please leave a review, any comments or questions on whichever platform you prefer. And of course, feel free to share out your socials with your friends and your colleagues. If you want to contact me direct, you can email jo@jolongconsulting.com or find me on LinkedIn under my own name, Jo Long. Until next time, thanks for listening and for watching.